repeat as Big 12 champions if he is the starting quarterback?
I think the best situation is for both of them still, and this is where we disagreed this weekend. Until Avery Johnson is forced to be a passer, until somebody takes his ground game away and we see him be a passer, it would almost be easier to make that kind of call, Tommy, if K-State wasn't very much in the mix for a Big 12 title still. So, like, if they had 2 or 3 losses, I would agree with you and say turn it over. But they don't. And so I think it's perfectly acceptable and fine as long as we get Avery into these games, right? Like we did against Tech. Like what happened in Stillwater, I'm not going to be good with. What happened in Lubbock, I'm good with, because we do still need to see the true freshman who's never had to do it get into a game where he's got to throw it 25 times. He hasn't
he had
had
some
to
nice
do that.
passes on
He
Saturday.
did, and so did Will Howard. I mean, they both were the same, right? Like very low risk, less than 10 yards in average on the, like they were very low risk, not downfield passes. And that's fine because again, that's what Tech was giving him. I have no problem with that. But we haven't seen a game yet, and we haven't seen Avery have to drop back, sit back, and throw the ball down the field consistently. I think he can, by the way.
I think I told you this on Saturday when we were texting back and forth with it. I think it even goes beyond that a little bit. Like I've watched a lot of Kansas State football this season, and this is not a knock on Will Howard at all. And I think Will Howard has done some really, really good things. I mean, he led the team to a Big 12 championship a year ago.
Yeah,
but I think it's obvious in watching this season so far. I think I told you this, that the Kansas State offense looks more explosive when Avery Johnson is on the field. Right. And so if you're doing that in small doses, I mean, how much more explosive can that offense be if Avery's just the guy? You know what I mean? Like rather than just throwing him in there every once in a while, it almost looks like, and I don't know if this is a Colin Klein, like by design by him as the offensive coordinator, but it looks like the Kansas State offense, at least this season, is fit better for Avery Johnson than it is for Will Howard. Like the play calling, the style of which Avery Johnson plays. I think Avery and Colin Klein are a lot more alike than Will Howard and Colin Klein are when Klein was the quarterback for Kansas State. So I think that there are some things that you can point to and say, man, like this offense just seems to click a little bit better right now with Avery Johnson than it does Will Howard. And unfortunately for Will Howard, like I feel like you almost have to take his feelings out of it a little bit, and just say, look, like, we got to, if you're Chris Kleiman, like you got to put the best quarterback on the field that's going to help you win and repeat as Big 12 champions. And I know he's a true freshman, and I know that there's arguments to be made about easing in true freshmen and all of that. Man, I think the offense is more explosive when Avery's on the field.
I think it is more explosive. I don't, and here's the, Will Howard is a better runner than he gets credit for. And Avery Johnson is, he is one of I can say this definitively from my, like I've covered high school football for 20 years now. Easily the most gifted thrower of the football I've ever seen. Avery, like this dude is incredible. That's what got, all the camps this summer. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm saying he hasn't done it yet. And so when you get to these moments, and I have no problem. It's almost like last year, like when Adrian Martinez came back healthy, I wanted him in the offense too. I like in college football, it's totally fine to me to have 2 quarterbacks. And it's almost like, and I think I sent you this, like it almost reminds me of the way Nick Saban will work in a freshman quarterback. And I think that is a pretty good blueprint here. Now, in a game like, and this is what will happen. So you have this Texas Tech game that's close and, whatever, and Avery Johnson just kind of stays in there. That's great. Like, that more of that, because that will, that speeds up the process of his development. But the reality is he's never thrown it he's thrown it 4 times in a game and 9 times in a game, and he's looked good doing it. None of that has really been pushing the ball downfield kind of throwing. So it's, what happens in a game where K-State might get down 14, 17 points early and Avery's got to just sit back and chuck it. We don't know that yet.
Right.
And so I don't want to just throw him to the wolves if you don't need to throw him to the wolves.
But don't you think that this whole discussion, it's not just about Avery, it's also about Will Howard. And I heard you say it a couple of minutes ago as I was talking. You said the words, he has regressed.
Oh,
And I think
clearly
that
he
I think
has.
that
Yeah.
that's accurate. And so if it was like Will Howard was playing great and Avery Johnson was playing great and they were at about the same level, okay, then you can make the argument that having both of them, with different packages and at different times, depending on the situation, I think that that's a fair assessment. But if you've got Avery Johnson, who is playing great right now when he's getting the opportunity to be out on the field, and then you have the starting quarterback, the incumbent, who we know what he can do, we know what he has done. He's a known quantity, but he has regressed. I mean, I think that does make it a little bit more difficult. Like, would you rather have Avery Johnson, unproven but explosive, or would you rather have Will Howard, who you know what he can do, but you also know he's not playing as good at quarterback as he did a year ago? Like, what would you rather have? Would you rather have the
Right now,
experience,
I'd
but
rather
maybe
have
not as
both.
explosive? Or would you rather? I think, okay, I get it, but also like, if you knew you were going to get the Will Howard from a year ago that led them to a Big 12 championship, I would agree with you. But I mean, it's pretty clear that that's not the Will Howard that we have right now. I mean, look at his performance a week ago against Oklahoma State. That's what makes it more difficult.
He has been both at times this year. He wasn't bad against Tech. Tech was just giving K-State something. And by the way, I good for the coaching staff for making the adjustment they should have made last week, because Oklahoma State was seemingly doing the same thing. Like, if you're going to let the quarterback run, if you're an opposing defense, and that's clearly been a game plan thing, right? Because Tech watched the Oklahoma State game and they're like, well, let's do that. That Avery Johnson needs to be in then, because he will tear you up running the ball. I think that Will Howard has showed us both. I think that, some of the concerns you might had in week 2 or whatever of like, we've got to be loyal to Will Howard. And they do need to be loyal to Will Howard to some degree, but not nearly as much, because we're not having the same conversations as before the season. Like, boy, could Will Howard with his size and everything play himself into a chance to play on Sundays? We're not having those conversations right now. So Will Howard has Will Howard very much to me has a role on this team. And I think that in a perfect world, K-State will be able to utilize both of these guys consistently. In an imperfect world, you're eventually going to just go with Avery Johnson anyway, right? But that means that something is going really, really wrong in a game, or that K-State has lost enough games where it's like, what are we waiting for? And I don't want to see either of those things happen. I think I don't have any problem with Will Howard opening a game. Let's see how the defense is going to defend us, and then we'll adjust. If they're going to let us push the ball down the field through the air, let's see if we can do that with Will Howard. The other thing that using them both does, and this is a strategic advantage, because I think Will Howard is wired the correct way to make this work. And K-State has a long history of this. If you use both of those guys, Tommy, it makes the opposing coach's job the week leading up to the game an absolute nightmare. Like, what do you do right now if you're TCU? Who do you prepare for? Why in college, when they're not forced to, do we get no? Because now you've got the opposing coaches sitting here trying to say, okay, well, we got to get ready for, Avery Johnson. We got to sell out. We got to come up. We can't let him run. And then out trots Will Howard to Phillip
Right.
Brooks over the top. You know what I mean? Like,
I think
that is a strategic advantage for the K-State
right.
coaches to be able to do that.
And I think you and I are not too far off from each other. I mean, I think that there is a place to use both quarterbacks in the right way. Um, I'm of the opinion that as of now, the game should start with Avery Johnson, and I think that you believe it should start with Will Howard. And really, it's kind of like, 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. My reason for that is that you mentioned, like, okay, well, what happens if the team falls behind 14 or 17? I don't think that that's going to happen if Avery Johnson is the quarterback. I think it might happen if Will Howard is, to start out the season. The other thing I want to point out is that you referenced like what Nick Saban does with freshmen and easing them in and giving them reps and making them feel comfortable. And in theory, and typically I would agree with you. The one difference I think with Avery Johnson and watching him, albeit in a fairly small sample size, but watching him out on the field so far this season, he's got the poise and he's got the confidence, unlike a lot of other true freshmen. Like, I watch
That's what
him.
we love about Avery Johnson.
I watch him carry himself, and I'm like, man, this does not look like a true freshman to me. And so, sure, there might be some benefit to easing him in. There might be some benefit to not, quote unquote, throwing him to the wolves. But man, I think this kid is built different than a lot of other true freshmen we've
And
seen.
it's not
I'm not so sure that that's really a concern.
It's not throwing him to the wolves. Like, there are still so many things that Avery Johnson has not experienced at this level. Taking 2 drives at the beginning of the game, observing what the defense is doing, and having your quarterback's coach like in your ear, like, did you see that? Watch this. Here's what they're doing before you go. Like, to me, there is nothing wrong with that. And again, it will make the opposing team, it's going to make life harder for them. Think back to, was it Tua that sort of pushed Jalen Hurts out in that year? I think it was, right? So you got to like imagine that a little bit and the way that played out. And then by the end of it, right, it was Tua. And I think that's ultimately what we're going to see here. I just think that right now they're not forced to do that, and it will allow Avery to get better for the moment that it happens. He has not started a game that way.
I think they're in a situation where the coaching staff has to prepare for the future while also playing for the present, right? Like,
absolutely,
you're still in pace you're still there to win a Big 12 championship. You still kind of control your own destiny. It's going to be difficult, but you can still do it. And so you've got to make sure that you're doing what you can right now in the moment, while also getting Avery Johnson ready to be the quarterback of the future for this program. And so I wholeheartedly believe, even though it's a small sample size, from what we've seen this season, and especially on Saturday from Avery Johnson, that he can lead this team to a Big 12 championship right now. The question is he a better option than Will Howard? I do think it does depend on, again, what the defense is showing and all of that. But man, I feel like by not having him out on the field, like if you're going with Will Howard, you know what Will Howard's going to give you for the most part. You've seen it for a long time. I feel like by keeping Avery on the sideline, you're costing yourself an opportunity to have a high-powered, explosive offense that can do a lot of different versatile things.
Yeah, I don't want to overstate what the offense has been with Avery. The offense has been Avery running, right? Like, that's what he does, and that's what he does. I mean, that's a big part of his game. He is again, 20 years, best thrower of the football I've ever seen. He has a lightning arm, but he hasn't had to do it yet. And Will Howard has. So if you come out, and that's the other thing too, maybe K-State's strategy against TCU, and this is what I would do if I were them, I would run Avery Johnson out there first, so that when you play the game after this weekend, the other team doesn't know what you're going to do, right? And then maybe you come back to Will Howard, unless they just let you run with quarterback. Like, if Avery Johnson starts against TCU and TCU refuses to come up and put more people in the box or whatever to try to stop him from running the ball, then I'd keep him out there. But the second they do that, oh, there's Will Howard. Now, wait, hang on. Now what are we going to do? Because Phillip Brooks will beat me over the top, or whatever it is. Like, that's what I would love to see. That's why I think, and why I think they're better with both, because I think that they can absolutely keep a defense on its heels with both. Here's the other crazy thing about that game. They need their offense to do that. Tommy, they gave up 480 yards of offense to Tech. Good. The defense is not good right now. And so they're going to lean on the offense. This will be, not the K-State of old, at least for a little while, because this is very much an offense first team. And so use both of these guys. And if Will Howard struggles throwing the ball still, and he didn't against Tech, but if he continues to struggle throwing it, then the decision gets easier. But I think this takes some pressure off of Will Howard. I could be wrong, but I think he's wired that way. I think this will be a good thing. Great problem to have. It's a great problem to have. It's the problem we had hoped K-State would have all year, right? This is what we wanted to see. We wanted to see Avery push Will Howard. That just means Avery's playing well. The Mays product, man. I listen, and I know where K-State fans sit on this, because I've talked to a bunch of them, and everybody's really excited about Avery. I'm really excited about Avery. But I genuinely believe if they can use both, if Will Howard plays at a high enough level, it will make this offense the best version of itself. 869-1240 is the IHOP hotline. What do you think, K-State fans? Let us know. On the way out here, let's give away some HTO. We've got Thunder hockey tickets coming in hour number 2. We'll do HTO here. Let's do some Let's do some coffee today, Chad. It was like 40 degrees on my walk this morning. So you can get any of the coffee options at the HTO Wichita East location or now in Derby. So check it out if you haven't. It's called the Brew House. It's got really good stuff. 869-1240. We'll give away 2 of those free Brew House offerings from HTO. We'll be right back. Chargers. You'll get that at KFH, or you can download the Odyssey app and search for KFH at kickoff if you're not by your radio. Speaking of the NFL, Tommy, wild and crazy Sunday. Great picks, bad bets for me. It was good. It was a very unpredictable thing. I'll ask you who you thought had, the biggest, most impactful win or loss in a second, but something that is definitely happening in football is scoring is down. I think if we look at it, I don't know, like off the top of my head, maybe 2 games got over the number. I hate it. I hate the way that offenses are being compressed right now. I think the game isn't as good. And I know some people disagree and they like to see the defense. I do not. I like to see big plays and explosive plays and all these things that are just, for a large portion of teams are just being, Chiefs included, are being taken away right now. That's the way the game is being defended, and offenses still just can't quite catch up. But here we go, and we look at this weekend. I don't know. Like, it makes it hard because you want, like, the reason I hate it is because we love fantasy football, right? We love players putting up big numbers and trying to do that when the reality is the smart way to bet everything is just to go under, like go under on everything, go under on player props, go under on all of it, because right now that's just the way the league's going.
There were only 2 teams that scored over 30 points this weekend. The Jags scored 37 against the Colts, and the Dolphins scored 42 against the Panthers. That was it. Not another team in the NFL scored over 30 points in a game yesterday. And so I think you're spot on with that. I mean, defense is clearly coming through. And I think that a lot of it is that we're seeing teams adjusting to the new different style of offense that was really in vogue a couple of years ago. And I think it started obviously with Patrick Mahomes and the way that the Chiefs were running their offense and all of that. Teams started to try to adopt that a little bit. You started to see other quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen to an extent do some of these things that maybe not at the same level that Patrick Mahomes does, but offenses really started to, kind of follow the leader. That's the way that it always works. And then now we're seeing defenses adjust accordingly to all of that. So I think that's a big reason why scoring is down. And then I think the teams that have, like yesterday, the 2 teams that put up the number of points that they did, like the Jags with 37 and the Dolphins with 42, those are kind of anomalies, right? And then the way that they are, explosive, and the Dolphins with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and what they've been able to do, that's the exception now. That's not the rule.
Well, the Dolphins are this interesting component against it because it's just a ton of speed. But the other thing that's really suppressed it is key injuries, and those continue through the weekend. McCaffrey goes down, Montgomery. Those have been the top 2 running backs. They both leave the game with it. Like, injuries have just been brutal. And I've seen people on social media who have played or observed, and they do, like, they're like, I just wonder if it's a lack of practice, like the less work you do before. Turf has come into the picture is a big thing, but turf's been around for a long time. So I don't know why, it's been an absolute bloodbath of injuries this year too. All right. So you get of the big, like, notable headline type things that happen. You get the Browns beating the 49ers at home without Deshaun Watson, which was interesting because I didn't think that really cost him anything. Deshaun Watson doesn't look that good to me. You get the Jets finding a way to beat the Eagles at home. Those are the 2 notables, I think, as far as winners. And then you look at the other side for losses. Like, I don't take anything away from San Francisco. I'm not worried about San Francisco. We knew Cleveland's defense was really good. They lost some key players in the game. I think you worry probably slightly more about the Eagles, but still not a ton. I think the biggest winner to me, Tommy, is the Jets. They're 3-3. You probably would have been excited in when, like, okay, if they'd have been 3-3 with Aaron Rodgers, with the way their schedule started.
Yeah,
so
we talked about that at the beginning of the season about how difficult their first 6 games were, and they have been able to go 3-3 without him. I'm with you. I was going to say the Jets as the most impactful victory because I still don't think the Browns are a legitimate playoff team. I really don't. I mean, I know that they're 3-2 right now, but I just don't.
Their defense is so
their defense is good, but I just don't see the complete package with the Browns in that division. And maybe I'm wrong. I just don't I don't particularly see it right now. And the fact that they were able to win without Deshaun Watson, I thought PJ Walker looked better than Deshaun Watson has.
Deshaun Watson doesn't look good anyway.
No,
The fact that
so
the fact that they won it without Nick Chubb, how about that?
yeah, for sure. So I think the Jets, I agree with you. I think that's a more impactful victory. And they did it on the strength of their defense based on what we just talked about. That late interception that, essentially led to the Brees Hall touchdown, and the Jets were able to stun the Eagles in that way. I mean, they're hanging around. They're hanging around. And really, I think the Bills look beatable. If you watched any part of Sunday Night Football last
if
night,
they have so many injuries, they better be beatable.
right? Definitely. They're not at the same level that we're accustomed to. The Bills do look beatable. And keep in mind, the Jets already beat them once, the very opening game of the season. The Dolphins are explosive for sure, but there are ways to limit them. The Bills did that a week ago. It's a really intriguing division, the AFC East is. And if the Jets can hang around, if they can be pesky, and if they can lean again, we've said it before, on their defense and their running game, then I don't think that they're world beaters by any means, but I think that they can certainly be an interesting team later this season.
Brees Hall still with just 12 carries, and I think he had 4 in the first half. Like, what are we doing, Hackett? Stop putting Dalvin Cook in the game early. Like, stop
the game-winning touchdown, though.
I know, which just begs the question, why are you not just mind-numbing? But, hey, they win. Okay, fine.
I mean, if you can get a victory over, if you can beat the unbeaten Eagles with Zach Wilson, who went 19 of 33 for 186 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. I mean, it's a clean game. It's a clean game. He's never going to light the world on fire. But if you can win with a performance like that, and that's the way that you want to have your quarterback play, but you can still find a way to win with your defense, man, hats off to you. Way to go.
Well, they have to do that. They have to do that. Look, Brees Hall did have 5 catches, so he had 17 total touches. But again, he had almost nothing in the first half. Like, you've got to let him. And the reason I keep saying that is because Brees Hall breaks runs off as good or better than any running back in football outside of Miami right now. So give him the opportunity to do that when your offense is as limited as it is. Try and get one of those kinds of touchdowns where he just breaks one out. And look, they did utilize him in the past game, but like, for real, Dalvin Cook doesn't. And he only ended up having 3 carries, but they didn't run the ball at all in the first half, which is weird. Garrett Wilson's starting. They're finding a way to get him the ball. That's another key for them too. So the Jets, they're hanging around. They just got to try to get there. And in an AFC that, looks a little watered down from what we thought because of some key injuries, I think you feel good about that. I thought the other big one, and it'll go a little more under the radar because you had the high profile losses, but Jacksonville doing what they did, coming back from London after 2 weeks there in a really convincing, never close game against Indianapolis. That to me was the other one that really stands out. Jacksonville's starting to groove a little bit. And it was, it was a strange game if you look at it. Jacksonville only had 233 yards of offense, but they turned Gardner Minshew over 3 times. Like, Jacksonville didn't have to do very much offensively. And if they can get those kinds of games out of their defense, because their offense does go cold occasionally, we still see that from Trevor Lawrence, Jacksonville becomes a more dangerous team. And as you look at like complete teams in the NFL right now, if they can get those kinds of performances out of their defense, Jacksonville becomes a whole lot more dangerous because their offense isn't always going to be there.
Not only did they turn over Gardner Minshew 3 times, but they did a phenomenal job limiting the run game. And I still don't understand why Shane Steichen didn't lean more on the running game. You've got Jonathan Taylor back for a second straight week, and I'm sure he's got to get his legs and get ready to go. But he had 6 carries. Oh, no, 8 carries for 19 yards, averaged just over 2 yards a carry. Zach Moss, 7 rushing attempts for 21 yards. And Moss is the guy that absolutely went off a week ago. So Jacksonville did a good job limiting the run game for Indianapolis. But, man, I think that if I'm Shane Steichen, and I know I've got Jonathan Taylor, and I know I've got Zach Moss, and I know Gardner Minshew's my starting quarterback now, you got to go run first. I mean, you absolutely have to. Like, that's going to be the best way for you to win games this season. Now that Anthony Richardson, I read a report yesterday that he's strongly considering surgery to just completely be done for the entire season. So you're probably going to be riding with Gardner Minshew the rest of the way. you've got to be a run first offense moving forward.
They would, and that's where I give Jacksonville credit. They didn't let them. Jacksonville didn't let them do that. And so that's where credit goes to Jacksonville, because Indianapolis has been doing that against just about everybody. I thought the Ravens were really impressive in the early game.
Lamar looked pretty good. He looked
yeah.
bad a week ago against the Steelers, and he bounced back. And that's a really important win overseas for the Ravens in that divisional race.
That was a big win for the Commanders yesterday. So of all of the weird things that happened, you had the Lions do exactly what they needed to do, right? Like they got it done even without David Montgomery. And that was one of the better wins I thought of the weekend.
Thought the Rams looked pretty impressive over the Cardinals.
Yeah,
they've kind of been up and down this season. I thought that they looked pretty solid in that late window.
Other one. The Dolphins was the other one. The Dolphins, and I was looking for the other 5-1 team. The Dolphins and the Lions did a nice job establishing what they needed to do. The Dolphins got down 14-0 in that game. I don't know if anybody saw that. And then the Bengals. Look, that's a tough Seattle team. And Cincinnati did not, light the world on fire. I thought that would be a very high-scoring game. It was not. Their offense continues to struggle a little bit, but they got it done. And just getting it done for them feels like what all they need to do. I do think at some point they will find their groove. And I don't know when that is, but I think it's coming. And so kind of, in a very different way than the Jets, but it's almost like through 6 games, when you know everything that's happened, you're like, we're 3-3. Like, okay. I think if you're Cincinnati, you take that, right? Because if we have to pick that division all over again, they've got a great shot to still win their division. I mean,
there are teams that are hanging around at 500 through 6 games. And, the Jets are one of them. We talked about them. The Bengals are another team where, they're hanging in there. And, considering the disastrous start to the season that the Bengals had, I think you take that through the first 6 games for sure. The Vikings, they improved to 2-4. They're not out of it, in a fairly weak, outside of the Lions, NFC North. I think that they continue to survive and advance. The Vikings could be a team that they're not completely out of the question at this point.
They're going to have to survive without Justin Jefferson now. And they knocked Justin Fields out of that game, but I agree with you. And before the Jefferson injury, it was like, watch Minnesota, man. Like, they just got to hang around here and get it. But now it's like they'll be in the same boat as the Jets. If they're able to survive here, you're like, ooh.
I think my most pressing question after yesterday is, are we watching potentially the end of the Bill Belichick era in New England? Because it's been
needs
bad.
to be
bad,
and it's just like not
quarterback controversy week after week after week, and and he's refused to make any kind of change. And man,
with like Matt Patricia calling plays, like the days of Belichick outsmarting everybody, and again, one of the greatest ever. You can't do that if you don't have the people to execute.
Is his legacy damaged at all from the last couple of years? Like this brilliant mind of a coach and all the success and the dynasty and all of that, and then watching the way that they played the last couple of seasons?
Probably not. It probably won't be. The only thing is that question of chicken or egg, right? Which one is more responsible? Which was always a really silly question, by the way, because the player is always more responsible. I don't care what coach it is. Like, the player is Andy Reid, how many times did he get there, right? How many great teams did he have? But until he got Mahomes, they didn't win a title. And they had some really good teams. It's always the players that are more responsible. Now, great coaches, they'll put those players in the right position. There are plenty of bad coaches who've had great players, Staley, McCarthy, like they can't get anything done. We'll see those two face off tonight. Boy, you want to talk about a big game. That is a big game for both of those teams tonight. We'll get to Monday Night Football. Well, we might do that in our next segment. Top of the next hour, we'll have Shreyas Laddha, who just put out another breaker, a former KU player. We'll get to that with Shreyas, as well as KU's loss and the end of that investigation with the Adidas thing, which is, the good news to pull from KU out of the last few days. But we'll get to all of that as we make our way forward. Sports Daily, Albracht and Castor, rolling forward on a Monday.
Oh, okay, take it easy. We're going on the air.
This is Sports Daily on KFH.
All right, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Daily. Glad to be here with you. Jake Albracht, Tommy Castor, Jad Chambers producing. We'll have some Thunder hockey ticket giveaways coming up in the next hour. All right, let's talk a little baseball here, Tommy. We had the ALCS get underway last night. Don't forget we have Shreyas Laddha, our KU insider, coming up top of next hour. The one thing we haven't talked about yet is KU's football weekend. We'll do that with Shreyas in just a few minutes. But ALCS is underway. That was an intense game, I thought. Aroldis Chapman comes into the game, Royals fans, and he has been a roller coaster ride in this time with the Rangers. And he goes to a place where he's been really bad in big spots, including this year, and gets it done behind a really big time defensive play from the rookie. Did you know, Tommy, like, have you paid any attention to Evan Carter at all? Like, did you even know who he was?
Yeah, I know he's been a really big time prospect and has kind of set the world on fire a little bit, right?
Yeah, he's got that he doesn't care right now. No moment's too big. He's got that thing going for him. That second game of that series is this afternoon at 2:30. Nate Eovaldi, who's been really, really good, goes up against Framber Valdez. And we'll see. Texas, they got the split. They got the split on the road, which is what you want. Can they really turn the heat up on the Astros, though? We'll find out. a little bit later today. All right, when we come back, Shreya Slada, KU Insider, we got to talk about what happened in Stillwater, what happened last week with the basketball team, and then he's got some new reporting out today. Doesn't really pertain to KU at the current moment, but it is notable for a former KU player. So we'll get into all of that as we make our way through a Monday on Sports Daily.
Left Mornings with Bob and Tom on 97.5 and 1240 KFH. Wichita's most listened to sports radio. Always live on the free RTF.
For the Chargers versus the Cowboys. 3-2. Dallas beat the back the worst way after last week's loss to the 49ers, while the 2-2 Chargers are well rested after their bye. Join Kevin Harlan and me for all the action on air and on the free live stream sponsored by AutoZone on Monday Night Football.
Get ready for the game with more details and preview at WestwoodOneSports.com.
It's game day at Jim's house, and the spread is impressive.
Mike's already done some damage with the hot wings, and now he's dropping back and going deep for another slice of pizza.
I sure hope he brought the Pepto.
Mike knows that Pepto-Bismol provides fast 5-symptom relief from unexpected stomach upsets. He's no rookie.
The way he's throwing back those nachos, he's the GOAT.
Be ready for game day with Pepto-Bismol. When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, diarrhea. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
At Granger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call at Granger.com or just .com. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
The choices we make affect the moments we live. That's why who you choose for health insurance doesn't really matter until you really need it. With Medicare Advantage from Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, you'll need it no matter which moment you choose. We've got you covered, on and off the pickleball court. So the moment there's an ouch or whoopsie, we'll be there with a wow and whenever you need us. With more coverage options than ever and more reasons to love your plan, like premiums starting at $0, dental, vision, and hearing coverage, and an allowance for approved over-the-counter items, the choice is simple. Medicare Advantage from Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas. Call 888-565-4199 or visit bcbsks.com/enroll now. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas offers Medicare Advantage PPO plans. Enrollment dependent on contract renewal. Not connected with or endorsed by the U.S. government or the federal Medicare program.
Go Hog Wild Pit Barbecue. Hog Wild, get some for you.
It's $5.99 barbecue time. Hurry to Hog Wild for a complete barbecue meal that's only $5.99. Terry Caldwell, Hog Wild partner and general manager in Wichita and Maple and West Street, has all the details on this smoking deal.
Get a Hog Wild sandwich loaded with our award-winning meats like pulled pork, pulled chicken, or holidays, plus your choice of a classic side and a drink for just $5.99.
Upgrade your sandwich to beef brisket for just $1 more. Join us for lunch or dinner. You can also order online at GoHogWild.com. Hog Wild Pit Barbecue. 6 locations in Wichita, also in Derby, El Dorado, Hutchinson, and Salina.
Go Hog Wild Pit Barbecue. Hog Wild, get some for you. But don't be late, we close at 8. Keep your water heater heated.
If you have a tankless water heater, it is necessary to maintain these units yearly. Over time, the heat exchangers become lined with lime and calcium buildup. The fans on the units can get filled with debris. The burners need cleaned and blown out. David Lee's Plumbing can maintain and help extend the lifetime of your unit.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
College volleyball. It's time for the weekly WSU Volleyball Coaches Show with head Wichita State coach Chris Lamb. 6 o'clock tonight right here on KFH. The Shocks on a 5-match winning streak. including back-to-back wins in New Orleans at Tulane over the weekend. And the Shockers are getting ready for 2 home matches with Tulsa at Coke Arena coming up on Friday and Saturday. Shocker volleyball tied for second place in the conference division. Lots to talk about tonight with Coach Lamb at 6 o'clock tonight here on KFH. Happy birthday today to former Kansas football coach Bud Moore, who is 84 years old today. His first year as head coach of the Jayhawks, 1975, he was named the Big 8 Coach of the Year. He was National Coach of the Year runner-up behind Woody Hayes of Ohio State. In that year, Kansas went to Oklahoma and beat the Sooners 23-3. The only loss that season for eventual national champion Oklahoma. Jayhawks head coach Bud Moore, 84 today. I'm Ted the Sports Head.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
It's that time, Sports Daily, getting all the inside information on the Kansas Jayhawks. Let's go now to the KU football and basketball beat writer from the Kansas City Star, Shreyas Laddha.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Hour number 2. Shreyas Laddha joins us for a weekly visit here on Sports Daily, our KU insider. And it's been, it's been busy for Shreyas lately. You've got KU football in full swing here, and we've got a basketball situation that's been going on for 6 or 7 years, finally resolved. And then as a side note, not a current, KU player or anything, but a former KU player in a legal situation that we can get to a little bit later that Shreyas is reporting on here this morning. You can follow Shreyas on social media at SHRE98. You can find his work at the KC Star. Shreyas, how are you, man?
Good. How are you guys?
We're good. Let's start with football. That was as disappointing a loss, I think, as we've had for KU in this 2 or year and a half long stretch here. It felt like they had a great opportunity. They get outscored 12-0 in the fourth quarter to allow Oklahoma State to come back and win that game. Sort of the same thing we saw from K-State a week ago. It's really hard to go there and beat Oklahoma State. But I got to tell you, KU had every opportunity to do it, and they should have. That one was a punch to the stomach. That one stings a little bit.
Yeah, honestly, this was one of those games that you look back on and you think, hey, they should have really come out with a win in Stillwater and break a streak that they haven't won since 2007, And I know Kansas players and coaches were a little bit disappointed with the way it went because they had a great chance to close it out. They're up 8 in the second half, and they blew the lead a little bit, but they had opportunities to come back, and they just couldn't put together a drive, I think, in the fourth quarter to really take control of the game or take the game back. And it's one of those things that, you look back in the season, and depending on how it plays out, will 100% be looked at as a they could have won that one, or maybe things could have changed there. But I know KU fans are probably disappointed. I know the players a little bit disappointed, but like Jason Bean said, it's an opportunity to learn and grow, and hopefully build off and not make some of the mistakes they made in that game again in the coming games.
Shreyas, everybody knows the explosiveness that Jason Bean has with his legs, but he showed it off with his arm on Saturday in Stillwater. He started off the game spectacularly throwing the football, and then I know had a couple of turnovers late, but what did you take away from what Jason Bean was able to do throwing the football?
Yeah, it's like I was really impressed. He probably put the best first half that I've seen him play since I joined the Veep, but I think honestly the best first half he's played in a Kansas uniform, if not his entire career, college football career. He was incredible. I mean, he was making great throws. They were stacking the box. He was doing things that I think you needed him to do to give Kansas a chance to win the game. I think the fourth quarter, like Leipold alluded to, was not his best effort. He had 2 interceptions. I think he was a little rushed, a little panicked there. I think Oklahoma State did a great job of adjusting in the second half as a whole to his play. And it was a tough spot for him to be in because the run game, like it is 100%, putting a lot on him. But if you look back, and I'm sure he will say, look back on that game, they had it. And maybe if those picks don't happen, they probably walk away with a victory in Stillwater.
Well, and two, don't you think, Shrees, if they were able to ever run the ball effectively, which they couldn't, like that was a game where you could have leaned into the run game, especially late, to put it away, but they just couldn't get it going, which I think surprised all of us, and at least surprised me, that they just couldn't, get going what they lean on so heavily on the ground. Oklahoma State, credit to them, they would not let them establish the run.
Yeah, honestly, I was really impressed by Oklahoma State and their ability to kind of really stop Devin Neal and Highshaw, who have been tremendous so far this season. I think they did the best job of any team I've seen so far this season by far. They came in giving up 150 yards on the ground to opposing teams, and they limited KU to 90. And this is a KU team that was averaging 225 or 223 on the ground before the last game. And Devin Neal, he still had a pretty good game in the sense he had, I think, 66 carries, 5.3 YPC. But it was one of those things where you 100% felt like the KU run game could not really get anything consistently going, like you said. And like you said, credit to Oklahoma State and their ability to kind of, obviously they stacked the box there, but they did a tremendous job of tackling these guys and making sure they didn't get any big yardage plays that they've had a tendency to get against other teams.
Oklahoma State had a really great start to the game, and I'm watching it on TV, and they jump out to a 14-0 lead, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. This is not the way that the Jayhawks wanted to start the game. I think it really forced Jason Bean to throw the ball more than maybe they wanted him to. What did you take away from the way that Kansas responded after Oklahoma State jumped out to an early lead?
I mean, honestly, I was really impressed. They started off pretty rough, and they could have easily folded down 14-0, but they came back and they really made the second quarter their own. They outscored Oklahoma State 18-7. They could have scored even more if they had not made some miscues in the special teams areas and, extra points and all that. But that was the kind of, resolve that you want to see out of a team missing their star quarterback, out of a team missing, just some of the best, I think, players, one of the best players on the team, and I think Jason Bean showcased that, hey, if you're going to stack the box against me, you have to worry about my arm. You have to worry about what I can do. And, I think that was a really, really impressive showing for him as a whole. Obviously, I think, the encapsulation of him getting 2 interceptions at the end was almost like the full Jason Bean experience of his career at Kansas, right? He's done a tremendous job at points, but sometimes he's his own worst enemy.
All right, let's look then to the future a little bit, Trias. And what you get a week off here, and then it's Oklahoma. It's Oklahoma at home. What are the chances Jalen Daniels can start and go the full way in a game with the time off? Is that even helpful at this point from what we know about that injury?
Yeah, I think it's 100%, optimistic as much as anything. In the sense that, like Leipold said, we're optimistic he's moving better. He was on the sidelines, we'll see what happens, obviously, but I think having the week off will be tremendous for Jalen and his recovery from this back injury. And you hope that maybe there's a good chance that he plays. Maybe it's 50-50, but that's a big step up from doubtful that it was this week throughout this week and the week before where it didn't even seem like it was possible that he'd play, I think, you hope if you're a Kansas fan that he's ready to go against Oklahoma, because I think the chance of upset really hinges, I think, on Jalen's ability to play, especially against a team as tremendously talented and as good as OU has been. So I'm interested to see what happens, but I think the bye week could have come at a better time for Kansas football.
So they've got Oklahoma next after the bye week. This team is still one game away from bowl eligibility. And I know that when you look at the schedule after Oklahoma, there are clearly winnable games left on the schedule, regardless if it's Jalen Daniels or Jason Bean. I mean, of course, you'd love to have Jalen Daniels the rest of the way. But what do you think that this team needs to do outside of just getting Jalen Daniels healthy? What do they need to focus on to make sure that not only they get bowl eligibility, but they're still in the hunt for a Big 12 championship?
Yeah, I mean, I think they need to improve. The defense needs to be a little better, I think. They've got to stop giving up these big chunk yardage plays. They do a great job of playing bend, don't break, but it eventually does break, right, throughout the games we've seen. And I think there's got to be a little more consistency throughout the defensive effort. I feel like in the first half of the game, Oklahoma State did a really good job of raining down points. Kansas did a better defense did a better job in the second half of making sure Oklahoma wasn't scoring as much. But they just have to be more consistent throughout the game. They got to do a better job of making sure these guys, like Ollie Gordon, the Oklahoma State running back, went wild in the run game and in the reception game, where he had over 200 plus all-purpose yards. You can't have that happen where you let their stars beat you, you're missing tackles. There's no consistency there. Then you look at the special teams. You can't have what happened happen on Saturday ever again. You can't miss out on 3 potential points because of special teams, really 4. It was one of those things that I was kind of baffled by, because the special teams at one point in the college football season was ranked number 1 in like ESPN's SP ranked metric, which is really, really tremendous and a big step up from last year. This Saturday, it felt like it was a big step back. I don't really expect it to be a continuing trend, but it's something to monitor. Those two things have to be aligned. And then the offense obviously needs to, be able to run through the running backs as long as Jalen isn't there. But, Jason has to play as well as he played, or at least, 3/4 is good to give him a chance in every game remaining. But the rest of the schedule is tough, and there's no guarantees of any wins. I think, Iowa State's probably the easiest game on that's left, then Cincinnati, and then everything else is kind of a toss-up or favor the other way. So I'm really curious to see what happens with this Kansas team, because I think you really wanted that OSU game, just looking at the rest of the teams left.
All right, so we'll get more on that next week, of course, as we are in game week for Oklahoma. Let's switch gears a little bit. Shreyas Laddha, our KU insider, joining us. You can find his work at the Kansas City Star a lot. It's been busy. Let's go to basketball now, and let's go to that IARP thing first. Long time coming. I think KU got what it expected. I don't think anybody expected postseason bans. That played its way through, but they do have to vacate some wins, which, throws a lot of records out the window and does some things like that. Do you think there was any chance that they thought they might not have to vacate the wins, or internally, has that been the expectation the whole time?
I think, that was the expectation. I mean, like, they really, honestly, probably the most ideal outcome of ideal outcomes without, having a postseason ban, like, in the sense of, yeah, they lost 15 wins, and, obviously they're behind Kentucky, and they lost some streaks, and that's all big things. But Self didn't get more suspension. Curtis Townsend didn't get any more suspensions. They're just on probation for 3 years. I think you look at it, if you're a Kansas fan, and, it's just probably be glad to have that in the rear mirror and just kind of done with it as a whole. It's one of those things that has been hanging over this program for about 6 years. And, you come out and everyone says, well, now it's done. And now you know what to expect. So just don't do it again. Some of the things that they had got allegations for. But obviously those records and something like that stuff, you can't take back the memories, as the fans say. So, it'll be interesting to see, what the reaction has been from some of the other fan bases. I'm sure other fan bases feel like it's not enough or whatever, but I felt like that was a good middle ground for this punishment wise.
Well, it certainly seems like, Shreyas, that the appetite, for a major sanction was just not there from the independent panel. And, of course, this was the final case that the IARP even heard before it disbanded. And just, you mentioned hanging over the head for a long time. Is this something that, as we look back on it and knowing the way that the landscape with college athletics has changed with NIL and all of that, is this something that, and I know that you're kind of speaking for the entire, college basketball world here, but in your opinion, do you think that in hindsight, as we're looking back on this, maybe 10, 20, 50 years down the line, that this will even be considered a big deal for Kansas?
Absolutely not. I mean, think about it. Half the stuff that they're accused of having done or whatever is pretty much legal now anyways.
Right.
it doesn't matter, honestly. I didn't think it was a big deal back then. I don't really think it's a big deal now. I get why people are mad. I understand it, but, let's not act like Kansas isn't the only college in America that is doing the exact same thing, or had done the exact same thing. I bet you every other SEC school in the nation has probably done that. And I bet you plenty of other Big 12 schools have done that, Kansas was just the one that got caught, So I don't think it's as big a deal now, and especially the fact that it happened 6 years later where all this stuff is pretty much legal now anyways. It really does not mean too much to me.
All right, Shreyas, you've got some other reporting out right now on a former KU player. This just dropped here within the last, hour or so. Josh Jackson finds himself in a little bit of a legal situation. But as I'm reading your reporting, he and his people are very defiantly denying and pushing back on these accusations. So what is going on with Josh Jackson right now?
Yeah. So it's basically a federal lawsuit against him for a rape allegation, and then allegedly have sent goon, the wording is goons, but it's two other women to, threaten this woman and, threaten her if she talked about it and stuff like that. I'd like to remind it's a civil lawsuit, not a criminal lawsuit. The criminal case is technically not closed yet, though. But it is something that's been ongoing. We've known about it since, I think, June or so, obviously, just because of the fact that we just have to wait, because the last couple of months, as I've reported, as me and Luke reported, we've been waiting on whether the judge would grant anonymity to the woman, and he did on Thursday. So there's no set trial date, and there's still some stuff kind of ready to, still have to get figured out. But I think, obviously it's something that has some due credence, especially with the judge giving anonymity to this woman for it to kind of move forward.
You can read about all of it right now at the KC Star and see what is happening there. All right, Shreyas, well, enjoy the football bye week. I know it's never a bye week this time of year for any of us, but, enjoy it. Get ready for Oklahoma. What do you guys have coming up this week during the bye?
Yeah, so obviously it will be a Big 12 Media Days, which I'm looking forward to. Should be a fun one. Get some chance to talk to some of these KU players, Bill Self, etc. We'll have the weekly film session that I have every Wednesday morning come out that I'll be recording Tuesday. And, we'll have something or another. There's always something that pops up, like you guys said.
Oh, yeah. KU picked number 1 in the Big 12 to the surprise of nobody. But at least now with KU Hoops, we can talk about KU Hoops on the floor for the next season, which should be a fun one, and which they'll be, one of the odds-on favorite to win it all. Shreyas, we appreciate it, and let's talk again next week.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
There goes Shreyas Laddha, our KU insider. You can find his work at the KC Star. You can find him on social media at SHRE98. Tommy and I'll come back. If you missed any of that, by the way, if you're joining us late, KU fans, you can go back and listen for free on the Odyssey app. Chad will podcast that out for us. We'll come back. We'll continue on a Reaction Monday. Wild day across the sports world. College football, big outcomes. NFL, big outcomes. We'll go rapid fire. We'll look ahead to Monday Night Football as well. All coming up in Sports Daily.
Your phone call is welcome. 869-1240. Sports Daily on 97.5 and 1240. KFH, Wichita's #1 sports radio.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Jake Albracht, Tommy Castor with you on the program. Your IHOP hotline is back open, 869-1240. It's brought to you by IHOP. Try IHOP's new slow-braised beef pot roast or a savory country fried steak. Chilly out there this morning. Pot roast, definitely not a bad choice. All right, we've got one more game on the NFL slate tonight. Last game of our picks as well. The line has moved toward the Chargers this entire time. Cowboys in LA taking on the Chargers, coming off of a bye week. Dallas coming off of a really disappointing performance. I got nothing predictive here, Tommy, because I think these are two of the most unpredictable teams. This would typically be a really good spot for the Chargers, but we know they don't do what they're supposed to do all the time. The Cowboys are really good after they lose. I think like 9-1 or something the last few years after a loss. They do tend to bounce back well. But again, LA's coming off a bye. I don't have much for you here as far as like what I think will happen. I think the over-under line at 51 is right at the spot where I'm not comfortable on either side of that. It's a big spot for Dak. I have heard some, people that, watch tape and everything say that it doesn't feel like it, but Dak's actually been really close to being really good. It's just been a tick off there. So I don't know what that means. I just know Dallas can't run the ball. The Chargers don't have a very good defense. Feels like a big spot for Dak. And it's really kind of the same on the other side too. Coming out of the bye, the Chargers are fully healthy, Tommy. They get Eckler back now. Not fully healthy. They don't have Mike Williams, but they do get Eckler back. I don't know. I really don't know what to make of this game tonight because these coaches are very unpredictable.
I go back to what you said a couple minutes ago about how good Dallas is after a loss. Like, think back to the last time they laid an egg earlier this season against the Cardinals. They lost by 12. They came back out the very next week and they throttled the Patriots 38-3. So they laid an egg last week against the 49ers in primetime. They're primed now to have a really good game against the Chargers. Now, the Chargers are a lot better than the Patriots were when the Cowboys came off their last disappointing loss. So it's a little bit different there. But man, like, they've got a big opportunity to bounce back. And so that's why on Friday in our picks, I picked the Cowboys. I feel like they've got the opportunity to bounce back and to kind of get back on the right side of things. Even with the injuries that they have suffered defensively, they're still a really, really good defense. And, so if they can get some pressure on Justin Herbert, if they can lock down in the secondary, I think they're going to have the opportunity to play a really good game tonight.
So just even going back to last year, when we talk about Dallas after losses, they won every game after they lost last year, and sometimes in convincing fashion. But the opponent that they beat in some of those next games, like last year after a loss, they beat Cincinnati, Detroit, the Vikings, the Eagles, and the Bucks. Okay, so it's not like it's like a luck of the schedule type thing. Like they really do play well coming out of a loss. That makes me want to lean Cowboys tonight. It does. It's the whole Chargers getting a home game, coming out of a bye, getting Eckler healthy. And it's also what are the Chargers? Like, what are they? Who are they? Like, that's the other part of this that's just, it's just crazy, is I don't know what to expect out of them too. Look, I'll probably, if I get whatever site giving out like a bonus or a booster or whatever tonight, I'll probably go Cowboys, especially now that the line's just 1.5. I mean, if there's a booster, I'll probably just take it at the money line and boost it up a little bit. But inside the game, it's a CeeDee Lamb game. Like, that's the thing about Dallas too that is a little unpredictable. Is what do they have? Like, what do they have on offense? It doesn't feel like Pollard's going to be able to do much ever because he's just so miscast as a lead bell cow type back. So, do the tight ends step it up in this one? Is this a big opportunity for CeeDee Lamb? I think it probably is. And if the line can give Dak time, but we'll see. The Cowboys defense is a big question for me too. I'd feel a whole lot better about that defense if they were able to give Justin Herbert fits tonight.
I get that. I totally understand all of that. The one thing about the Chargers, and really honestly, both teams that I know you referenced it, you call it unpredictable from both of these teams, and that's true. But I think a lot of that unpredictability comes from the way that Mike McCarthy and Brandon Staley manage games, right? Like, that's, if we want to be real and fair about it, like, that's where the unpredictability comes from.
Totally.
It doesn't necessarily come from the play on the field. It comes from the coaching and the game management and the decisions that some of these coaches make. And Mike McCarthy has gotten a bad rap for a long time about all of that. But really, I think that he's been surpassed as far as like terrible decisions in game by Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley,
definitely.
I think, is significantly worse.
Definitely.
And so
I don't know about
power
significant,
rank
but
that,
Staley's the poster boy right now.
if you're going to power rank like terrible in-game management, Brandon Staley's up there, Josh McDaniels is up there, and then probably Mike McCarthy, I would say, comes in third. I mean, it's still not good. It's not a good Mount Rushmore you want to be on. But man, like, that's what I'm really looking forward to in this game is, it's going to come down to some really critical play, some really critical decision that's made, whether it's timeout management, clock management, whatever it is. And one of these guys is going to royally like screw the pooch. And it's probably going to be Staley.
Again, McCarthy has a good history of getting back to it when push comes to shove. But that game is tonight. I think it's going to be a good game. I do think it'll be entertaining. I'm excited about the matchup. I'm excited to watch Justin Herbert, try to continue to be one of the top quarterbacks in this league. Let's switch gears a little bit here, Tommy, and talk about the college football weekend. We talked about K-State and KU. Elsewhere, though, it was a moderately big weekend full of pretty big matchups. And clearly Washington makes the big statement, right? Washington gets the win. They take down Oregon.
That was a fun game to watch.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. The other big one is Notre Dame bounces back and gets the big win for themselves. Now with 2 losses, you wonder if they're going to have enough, but they do bounce back, and boy, they put USC down. They dominated in that game. And so, Caleb Williams comes in, plays a big defense, and I think a little of the shine is wearing off of Caleb Williams just a little bit. USC is so Tommy, Notre Dame wins 48-20. 48-20. Top of your head, how many total yards of offense do you think Notre Dame had in that game?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like you would think off the top of your head, it's like 400 plus.
250.
Yeah.
250.
Oh,
Three interceptions by Caleb Williams.
I mean, the Notre Dame defense, they put Caleb Williams through a blender in that game, right? And that's what Notre Dame hangs its hat on.
What they do.
I thought the USC explosive offense potential would ultimately come through. I picked USC in our picks on Friday, but man, like that's impressive from Notre Dame bouncing back from that. Sam Hartman didn't have to do much. He only threw for like 120 some yards, had a couple touchdowns, but he didn't have to do a whole lot because again, Notre Dame leaned on their defense, and that's really what worked for them.
Yeah, I thought that was big. I don't know if they can play themselves back into it. Probably can, because I just don't know, what's going to roll out there. Another big one, and this was interesting maybe regionally for some folks, Missouri with a massive win over Kentucky. On the road, Missouri now sits 6-1. How about Mizzou? Good for them, right? To bounce back. Everyone thought, there was a point in this season, and we probably said it too, like of the region, boy, they got to be worried there. Drinkwitz's got to be worried because KU and K-State are just lapping them. And it's like, well, no, probably they're actually not. Missouri is doing a great job right now.
They are. And they have, they've turned things around. Brady Cook has looked pretty solid. And the fact that they found themselves back in the top 25, they're ranked 20 now this week at 6-1 overall. Man, like it wasn't that long ago. And I honestly think I go back to the K-State game in Columbia. If Kansas State wins that game, then I think that more people are calling for Eli Drinkwitz's head at that point. Like that's a crucial turning point, I think, in the season for the Tigers. And they win that game on the last second field goal. And then all of a sudden they start reeling off wins. And that's what Missouri has done. And I mean, they could very easily find themselves, battling, at least in the SEC West, battling for a championship there.
Tommy, who do you think sits in second place right now in the Big 12 standings?
West Virginia?
No, they're tied for third. Iowa State. Iowa State's 3-1 in the Big 12. This has been very, very interesting as the Big 12 has played itself out. And, Iowa State, West Virginia, Oklahoma State are a combined, those three teams, right, that we thought were going to be terrible at one point in the year are a collective 7-3 right now. They're all on the top half. And I don't know what to make of that because I don't think it's fool's gold, right? They're winning games, but it's a real, the Big 12 this year, and it may stay top heavy with Oklahoma and Texas. That won't surprise me. But that middle of the pack, it is going to be fascinating to watch that play itself out this year and the maneuvering among that next tier of teams. And you can count out Cincinnati at this point. I don't know if I'm quite ready to count out UCF. Houston had just an absurd win on a last-second Hail Mary, counting them out of being relevant. Baylor, to this point, I think fits that mold, and BYU. And I think that's it. I think that bottom five now, and again, I'm not totally convinced UCF can't kind of get in there, but it is a jumbled mess in that league. And I know it's not like the best football we've ever seen be played in the league by any means, but it will, if nothing else, be really entertaining, I think, down the stretch as we watch KU and K-State try and make their play to get into the title game.
Yeah, I think that's the key point from what you just mentioned is that it's not the best conference, not even anywhere close to the best conference in college football. But man, it's entertaining because you've got kind of a jumbled mess, like you mentioned. If you want to look at one of the best conferences, man, the Pac-12 continues to be fun. I know that we talked about Washington and Oregon briefly. How about the Friday night game with Colorado and Stanford? I mean, just insane. I texted you Saturday morning. I went to bed. It was halftime.
I did not.
I was tired. I fell asleep with Colorado having a 29-0 halftime lead and thought, okay, well, clearly Colorado is putting their foot on the throat of Stanford, and the Cardinal looked really bad in the first half. And then I wake up all of a sudden and Stanford is won in double overtime. What the heck?
I watched it. I had Colorado. I actually loved Colorado as a bet. in that game, and they were up 29-0. So we're out there doing high school football. By the way, shout out to Cheney for the huge win on Friday night over Andale. Andale's run. Shout out to Andale for the run that they put together. Just a really awesome moment for all of us Friday night. So we're going through all that, and it's like 29-0 as we're coming off set, and I'm like, okay, Colorado's gonna they're gonna pay. Everything's gonna be good. They did what I thought they would do. I didn't think Stanford was very good. And then I get home and I just kind of check the scoreboard on my phone, and I was like, wait a minute. 29, whatever it was, 29-26. Like, what's happening? And I watched that catastrophe happen. And they let it go. That was a big, that was by far the biggest letdown for Colorado. And I saw something after the game from Prime about, try not to pay any attention now to the noise. All the positive attention and energy we've had so far is about to turn around and go the other way. And he said, don't get mad about it, because it's true. Like, it's all correct. Like,
he's owning it.
Well, he is, because it is. And just like that level of honesty, it's like he's not, I don't even know how to define what it is, like what it feels like to me. He treats his players as peers, I think, is what it feels like to me. And I could be off, but it just like there's a approach that he has that's just a little bit different. Like we're working professionals. Like, clearly I'm in charge and I call the shots, but I'm going to talk to you like you're my own teammates in a locker room as much as anything else. Like, these people are going to come at you on social media, and they're right. You deserve it. Now deal with it. How do you deal with that? Deal with it the right way, because it's coming and it's true and it's warranted, and it is. And this is reality for us. And, I think that's all really interesting. It's unfortunate. It probably really hurts their chances at a bowl game and those kinds of things to let that one go, sort of like KU and Oklahoma State, quite frankly. But we'll see how they bounce back from it. But, man, I just love his approach and the way that he, the messages that he puts out there to his players, because they're genuine.
One of the things that he said in postgame that really stuck with me is, he was talking about his players, and he said, we've got some players that, I'm not sure they're in love with the game. They're in like with the game. And that's the thing about Prime, is that he's so quotable. He's got all of these phrases that you're like, man, like, he's a great speaker. We've known that for 30 years, how good he is in that regard. But he's true. It's true. He's right in that aspect. The thing that I think will get lost in the shuffle, let's just say that everything sort of falls apart, and, that collapse is kind of the turning point, and things go south for the Buffaloes for the rest of the season. Keep in mind, they were projected to do absolutely nothing this year in their win total. And they basically have already met or surpassed those expectations through the first month of the season, right? And so, like, even if things fall apart from here on out, and they very well could, and I think that there are some things, football speaking wise, fundamentally wise, that are falling apart and kind of being exposed a little bit from this team. Don't let that get in the way of what he's been able to do as far as changing the culture very quickly in Colorado.
Sure. It's going to get tough for them. They got to go to UCLA. They host Oregon State. Arizona just got a big win against Washington State, where they have to travel. And then they got to go to Utah. I mean, they're not going to be favored probably in any of those games. I don't think they'll be a favorite the rest of the way.
They found themselves in the top 25 at one point this season. They found themselves with, big primetime games, tons of eyeballs, most viewed games. And of course, that's the Coach Prime effect, but also, he led them to a big upset against TCU to kick off the season that nobody expected. They beat Nebraska. Like, they've had some really, really, really high moments. And I think that, as this program is moving forward, assuming that Coach Prime returns next year, I think he probably will. They've set themselves up, even if things go south the rest of the way, set themselves up for a good season next year for sure.
Well, it goes back to what we talked about with KU last year, right? And by the way, I think Colorado's got a big upset in them at some point down the stretch here. Like, they'll win one of the, I don't think they're going winless. But it's like what we brought up, or at least I did, time and time again last year with KU. Like, this is really shiny at the beginning. At any point, does reality set in here? And if it does, does the momentum keep pace with where it was? Now, for KU, I think that it did. I think it did keep up. And for Colorado on campus, it will. For networks and TV exposure and all those things, I still think it probably will, because we are fascinated by Prime. And even more than him, and this is where I like where things are headed, at least with the tone. It's not even as much him. Well, it's both of these things. It's very much him. But it's also how good Shedeur Sanders is. Like, that dude is a good football player. It's also that, and I hope this happens, like Travis Hunter is back now. It's what can he do as a two-way player? Like, some of the things we were looking at those first couple of weeks where we were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, I think those will come back in, and they have remained as much of a part of the conversation as the coach himself. So we'll see. Colorado, I think they'll remain interesting as long as they just don't start getting boat raced by everybody, which, again, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll be okay to keep the momentum headed right into next year when they join the Big 12, which will be fun for everybody. All right, Tommy, let's give away some Thunder hockey tickets. What have you got for us?
Yeah, this week, Friday night, in Trust Bank Arena, the Thunder kick off their season against the Kansas City Mavericks. We've got a family 4-pack of tickets to opening night this Friday night.
Family 4-pack to our third caller right now. It is hockey season, everybody. Jad will catch us a winner. We'll come back. We'll have more Sports Daily right after this. All right, congratulations there to William for winning a 4-pack of tickets to the Thunder home opener on Friday. Enjoy it there, William. Have fun at the game on us here at Sports Daily. We'll do that throughout the week here and continue our giving spirits here on Sports Daily. One of our favorite things to do is to give that stuff away. Hey, by the way, NFL, Monday Night Football, you'll have Cowboys Chargers right here on KFH at 7 o'clock. Primetime NFL games from Westwood One available live for free on KFH, of course, and on the Odyssey app. Tune in for that game tonight, Monday Night Football, or simply download the Odyssey app and search for KFH at kickoff. All right, Tommy, real quick, we've been cut short on it, and this won't, I'm not going to make this like all about the Rangers every day, so bear with me. It did make me wonder, though, last night as I'm watching that and getting messages from all kinds of different fans of different fan bases. Have the Astros become the number one villain? I think they clearly have in baseball. Like, there's not a team I would root for that I would root for the Astros if they were playing. Not one anymore. That includes the Yankees. Have they become the best, like the top most, like, universal villain in all of sports? Like, is there anyone with them right now? Are they even your top villain in baseball? Like, would you?
No, no, they're not. But I'm different. Like, I don't know. For a while, yeah, like after the whole scandal and all of that, it was in vogue to boo them and hate them and all of that. I'm kind of over it at this point. And honestly, you know why? I think a lot of it is Dusty Baker. I love Dusty Baker. I always had loved Dusty Baker, and that was the right hire for the Astros to try to, like, it's one thing to boo like guys like Altuve and Bregman and, like, some of those guys that were part of the scandal back then. It's another thing. I mean, Dusty Baker wasn't a part of that, and he's always been a class guy, and he's been super successful in his career. The Astros knew what they were doing in hiring Dusty Baker because I think he's difficult to boo. Now, I guess if you're a Cardinals fan, he's probably easy to boo because of the, acrimonious relationship he had with Tony La Russa back in the day. But I don't know. I don't hate them. I really don't. I'm kind of over it at this point. It happened so long ago. They win a lot, and I think for that reason, it does make it easier to boo them because it seems like they're always there and they're always good, and that can be frustrating. But no, I don't hate them. Like a lot of, like I know you do because you're a Rangers fan.
They make it easy. Like, Bregman is as arrogant a player as we have.
Sure.
Like, it's just like,
but so is Bryce Harper, and so, like, for me as a Braves fan,
I don't.
That's why I don't like the Phillies.
Yeah,
it's like it's kind of different.
I don't
based on.
I
your
guess
loyalties.
I don't watch Bryce Harper and think he's just like obnoxiously arrogant. That whole thing with the locker room or whatever. That's why. But Bregman's always arrogant. Like, he just is a cocky dude, and it makes it easy to root against him, right? I like Dusty Baker too, but man, people do not like the Astros, and most of it comes from the cheating. But a lot of it does come from their success that they've had, which is pretty remarkable, by the way. What is it, 6 or 7 straight ALCSs? I mean, it's just stupid. That to do that in baseball is really, really difficult to do. I need you to hate the Astros this week, Tommy. Just this week. Just hate them.
I mean, look, I'm not a fan of theirs. I don't love them or anything. I just don't have that level of hate that a lot of people do with them.
It's like a double whammy. It's like when the Rangers made the World Series for me in 2010. At that point, that's basically what the Yankees were. They destroyed our souls. The only time the organization ever made it. You had the A-Rod situation happening. It was and the Rangers came through. That was a really emotional ALCS, and this is too. And like, I don't know. My wife was very good last night about understanding how intense it was, but at the same time, like, we got a billion things happening with the kids, so it's like in between every inning, it's like run in there, like, all right, who's brushed their teeth? Like, what do we got to do here? Like, you got like a 2.5 minutes to get this done, and then just like
I was doing that
to the other room.
I was doing that Thursday night with the Chiefs playing Thursday night football, and then the Braves and Phillies. Game 4 was going on, and I texted you about this. It wasn't easy to watch both games. Like, you couldn't just go back and forth because one was on Prime Video and the other one was on cable.
Switch apps.
You know, so I had multiple TVs going with different games, and I'm going room to room. We're trying to put the kids down. It was. I feel your pain in that regard.
My greatest achievement of traditional manliness was getting 2 TVs hung side by side effectively so that I can avoid those issues. Like, I am not handy at all. Like, I'm pretty good with yard stuff, right? And I can make my way around a grill and all that kind of stuff. But as far as like, hey, this is broken, can you go fix it? I'm like, nope, we're gonna need to call a guy. That's not me. But I did hang these 2 TVs by myself, and they're side by side and they look good. And man, when I'm down there and can avoid that, it makes me like Tim the Toolman Taylor. You know,
I showed
the ground.
I showed my wife the picture of your 2 TVs side by side and was like, hey, we should do this. And she shut me down so quickly. So, I mean, I don't know if she's impressed by what you did or not, but she will not be letting me do that anytime soon.
It was almost a don't even ask, just do it situation, which I don't do a lot of that. I know there are some husbands out there that are really good at that. I don't typically go down that road, but this one wasn't. This one was almost like, hey, this is happening. Like, this is happening. And I think
was it a positive reaction?
It was fine. She thought it was ridiculous that we needed to buy another TV, but like, I tried to use work as an excuse, and maybe that factored in. You could try that. I mean, it probably isn't a good enough effective. We'll come back. We'll tell you what's on tap today next.
Boom, 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 boom. Nissan has a car for every driver who wants more. More action. More fun. More guts. More head turns. More adventure. More electric. At Nissan, more is all we do.
Patterson Legal is the way to go. Call 550-0000.
In a wreck, need a check? I'm attorney Tyler Patterson, and you only need to make one call. That's all. If you've been injured, we can help you get the compensation you deserve. We were just voted the best law firm in Wichita, and we've recovered hundreds of millions of dollars for thousands of Kansans just like you. Call Patterson Legal Group today for a free consult.
Patterson Legal is the way to go. Call 550-0000.
Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Lutz, Lutz, and kick off the NFL season. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. 21 plus and present in Kansas. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com.
It's cold outside, but spring mowing season will be here soon. Now is the time to bring your Husqvarna mower to Maximum Outdoor Equipment for the Husqvarna Winter Service Special. Save 25% off winter service labor or free pickup and delivery within a 25-mile radius now through December. Avoid the spring service crunch and save money with the Husqvarna Winter Service Special. South of 21st and Andover Road, or west location south of Kellogg on West Street, or visit MaximumOutdoor.com.
Come and enjoy a free birthday boil at Hook and Reel. Valid only with a minimum of a 2-entree purchase, proof of ID, and also valid 3 days before and 3 days after birthday. Located in Town East Parking Lot, East Kellogg.
At Grainger, we're for the ones who specialize in saving the day and for the ones who've mastered the art of keeping business moving. We offer industrial-grade supplies for every industry with same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders, all backed by real people ready to help. So you can get the right answers and products right when you need them. Call quickgrainger.com or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The KFH Studios, powered by Devon James Injury Lawyers. Call 888-8888. That's 888-8888.
Pro football action yesterday. The New York Jets at home hosting the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are no longer undefeated. Starting at running back for the Jets, Wichita's Breece Hall with the game-winning touchdown. The action on Fox.
We welcome those of you who are watching Arizona and the Rams on first down into the end zone. Breece Hall in for the touchdown, and the Jets take the lead.
That would be the game-winning touchdown, an 8-yard run for Breece Hall with 1:46 to go in the game. Put the Jets up 18-14. The Jets beat the Eagles 20-14, handing the Eagles their first loss of the season. Breece Hall had 93 total yards. Among that, a 25-yard catch. Back-to-back wins for the Jets on the season after the big upset. The Washington Commanders win in Atlanta 24-16, starting at offensive left tackle for the Commanders. Cornelius Lucas, former Kansas State Wildcat, getting his first start of the season for Washington. I'm Ted, the Sports Head.
It's like Kyle Shanahan is the actual owner of the Cowboys franchise and not that wacky old man who really does own them. Speaking of which, Jera, where was that spontaneous media gaggle to explain what happened in your big measuring stick game? My man, if that really was the big measuring stick game that you said it was, then your guys do not measure up, because alleged contenders do not get hammered the way you did in a game that you all admitted you had to have.
Jim Rome, middays from 11 until 2 on 97.5 and 1240 KFH, Wichita's most listened to sports radio.
Wichita's most listened to sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, everybody. You've got Jim Rome coming up at 11, Bob and Jeff from 2 to 4, Zach Gelb for a couple hours before the Chris Lamb coaches show for Wichita State Volleyball. They had a big win Friday night. And then you've got Monday Night Football. Cowboys-Chargers, a really interesting one. You'll hear it. Westwood One has it 7 o'clock right here on KFH as well. Chad, good to have you back. Welcome back. Congratulations to our giveaway winners. For Tommy Castor, I'm Jacob Albracht. We'll see you tomorrow.